Well, good evening. This is a very important city. Firstly, it was used by the Ukrainians since 2014 as the administrative capital for Luhansk, which is one of the provinces the Russians are after. It is also the last major Ukrainian city in that province. So not only is it a military target, it's an important political target for the Russians as well.
So they feel like if they target this, then one of the main ambitions of this invasion will have been accomplished?
I think so. They have certainly refocused their military efforts on the Donbass region, and almost all of Luhansk will have been taken if they're able to secure this particular city. But they haven't done that yet. They haven't encircled it, and the Ukrainians may well fight on for some time to come in that city.
So just how well positioned are Ukrainian forces to repel Russian troops?
Well, there is a large Ukrainian force in the Donbass. It's what they call their joint force operation. It's where they put their best forces traditionally. But they are in a precarious position. The Russians are chipping away at the Luhansk and Donetsk provinces. They're not going to be well supplied if they do hold out in that city.
Yeah, and I guess you just do not want to see a repetition of Mariupol.
Well, unfortunately, about 90% of the population of Severodonetsk has already been evacuated or left. There's about 10,000 residents there. It's a large city, normally of about 100,000 people. So if the Ukrainians want to fight for it, it will be quite a drawn-out and bloody fight with the Russians, I would imagine.
Yeah. It was interesting to note that the president has signed a decree making it easier for Ukrainians in that area to become Russian citizens. Do you think there may be some push to forcibly make some of the Ukrainians there become Russian citizens as a way of declaring this Russian territory?
Well, I think the intention is to ensure that the citizens in those areas then come under some other Russian laws around mobilisation of people for military and other functions, which are also being considered or passed through in Russian government at the moment. They are desperate to mobilise more manpower to fight this war from Russia, and they're taking soldiers from wherever they can, including occupied areas.
And that's a good point, because I did notice that not only have they raised the age limit to 40 for conscription in Russia, but they talked about other nationalities. So do you think some Ukrainians will be forced to join forces with Russia?
We're already seeing the Russians attempting to force Ukrainians to work for them in other areas, Kherson and these kind of areas. I think they're not having a lot of success. And we also saw some of the forces from eastern Ukraine that were proxies for the Russians not being allowed to withdraw back into Russia when they had issues around Kharkiv. The Russians are in big trouble when it comes to manpower, and they're desperate to find soldiers from wherever they can get them.
And as a military man, being over 40, is that an issue, to be at war, to be able to fight?
It depends what you're doing, but pretty much anything in the military over 40 is a lot harder than it is when you're in your 20s. But it's a sign of desperation from the Russians that if you have a population of 140 million and have to raise the conscription age, that means you have some real strategic challenges.
Mick, we've talked over the weeks that, Ukraine is really resisting, that in fact Russia's messed this up. But as you pointed out, there is this chipping away. Is it a concern that in fact they get a foothold that is going to make it very difficult to end this conflict?
So the Russians have certainly made incremental gains in several areas in the Donbass over the last couple of weeks. They've concentrated a huge amount of their forces remaining in Ukraine in that area. Severodonetsk is a key target for them, but they won't be stopping there. They want to secure all of the Donbass to declare a victory.
This week we saw the first Russian soldier sentenced for war crimes since the invasion. There are another couple that have just pleaded guilty this evening. I'd love to get your perspective in terms of these trials. This is a young soldier who says he was acting under orders. is that a differentiator? Obviously, he killed a civilian and that is a war crime, but is it a differentiator if you're acting under orders?
Absolutely not. It was a precedent established after the Nuremberg trials. Doesn't matter whether someone ordered you to break the law. If you break the law, you are subject to punishment under the jurisdiction where those laws are established or under international law. It's not a defence. You break the law. If you murder someone in combat, it's still murder. You should be punished.
Oh, interesting. And so even if his own life was in danger?
Well, if his life was in danger, that would be a defence that his defence team should put up. One of the things that the Ukraine is doing with these trials is conducting them properly in accordance with the law, where those accused of crimes get a defence. And that's a very important precedent as well.
Yeah, and do you think it's important that more and more of these trials are happening, and of course we're seeing more guilty pleas, which I'd imagine would be quite unusual?
It says something about the mindset of the Russian troops involved, I think. There's a lot of evidence that many of them had no clue about this invasion before it was launched. They were certainly surprised to be on it, and many of them are deeply unhappy to be there. So I think this says much about the morale of Russian forces.
Mick, always good to talk. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Beverly.